Hey, this is Stacia, and I'm gonna share a game that I played at the Parma Chess Club, rated tournament game, versus Jim Nix, who had the white pieces. Um, this game, Jim Nix went back to his main weapon as white, I believe, which is d4 and c4, Queen's Gambit. And we've had many games in this Queen's Gambit accepted. And he likes to go knight f3. I think more ambitious tries are like knight c3 and try to get like e4, maybe even e4 right away. I think those are more testing lines, but he does like this knight f3, e3 system, which is solid and, of course, completely playable. I mean, white does get a little bit of advantage. So I went knight f6, e3, e6, and white gets their pawn back, c5 fighting for the center. Note that I don't think this trade is very good for white because their king gets misplaced and I get to develop my bishop. So they usually don't take, they castle, which is what he did. And now a6. I want to go b5 to get a tempo on the bishop and then place my bishop on b7 on the long diagonal. That seems like a good idea. All right, so he went queen e2. Okay, and well, queen e2 is a little bit of a poisonous move. I can tell you that there was a game when I first switched to the Queen's Gambit accepted, maybe a couple years ago by now. I played against Jim Nix in an online tournament game from the Tuesday Tussle where I just got crushed. And I'll show you what happened because I want to remember myself so I never do that again. But I do believe in that game. After castles a6, he inserted the move a4 in that game. I went knight c6. And then he tried for this queen e2 plan. Now the idea of this is to go rook d1, kind of like I do in the Smith-Morra all the time. And then the rook will be lined up with the black queen, and white can sometimes play knight c3 and go for like this early d5 break. So in that game, I actually did capture here. He played rook d1, pinning the pawn. I went bishop e7. I think that move's fine. He went e takes d4, and then I didn't know what to do here. I think I should have just castled, but I was really determined to put my bishop on b7. So I played b6, which I think is already very iffy. Like maybe there's d5 right away. But he went knight c3, preparing d5. And yeah, then I played bishop e7 and d5 came in. And this was just terrible. Okay, there's the reason is my king's not castled. The rook's across from my queen. And if we take, which I kind of have to, I think this is what happened in the game. Takes. Now, he's threatening to take there and do that. He's also, there also might be bishop takes f7 stuff. So I actually took the knight, which I don't know what else to do. Now he's definitely threatening bishop f7, winning the queen. So I went queen c7, I think, or something like that. I don't know what else to do. And then he went bishop g5, I think, because the bishop is pinned, so he attacked it. And yeah, here I castled, which looks like a blunder. It's not even a blunder because there's nothing better. And because now there's a simple remove the defender to win a piece. So if you want to pause your video and find it, go ahead. Yeah, this knight's protecting that so that he could just take it, you know, and yeah, they just won material. So I will never forget that game. That was a big wake-up call for me on some danger in the Queen's Gambit accepted with this early d5. So I'll show you the way I play it now. I actually trade on d4 early. This looks extremely risky. In actual tournament play, I don't enjoy playing this move, but it is from my Chessable course. So I at least have solace in the fact that there will be resources for black. So he took this way. I think this is the most testing way to play white. White accepts the isolated queen pawn, but the bishop opens up and there's more dynamic play for white. Okay, so I went bishop e7, and yeah, I just want a castle like as soon as possible. There's rook d1. I did throw in b5 because I thought this is a tempo, and there's no immediate way for him to crush me on this diagonal because that is covered. So I thought that's okay. So he moved the bishop back, I castled, knight c3. So here comes d5, and now I just play bishop e7. And as you can see, I've got very nice control of this d5 square. There's no d5 coming in, and I could even occupy that square if I like, which is what I do in the game. So he went bishop f4, and I like my move here, knight d5. So I basically finally, I mean, I want to say out of book, but I wasn't really in book in this part of this game, but I knew what I was doing. But, you know, after bishop f4, it's time for me to come up with my own plans and stuff because I didn't remember anything specifically anymore. Okay, so knight d5. I thought this is a nice little tempo on the bishop. You know, he could try like this interesting move, queen e4. Michael Jolson suggested this as a possible move for white because it pins the knight. I don't know what's going on here exactly. Like maybe we take on b2, like everyone takes everything line. That's what I call it. I don't know, rook b1, let's move the knight, attack the bishop again. They could take there, I would take back. I'm not really sure, it just looks equal to me. I guess the engine's saying, yeah, equal as well. Just queen e4. And we just move the knight again. Yeah, so it's interesting though, right? But the other idea I thought here was maybe queen b6. No, that loses actually. Why does this lose? Queen b6. Knight takes. Wait a minute, maybe my rook's gonna get hit. Because after this... Okay, let's look at it. Queen b6. Knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Gonna have to take that, but it's pinned. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I was more aware of this bishop hanging in lines during the game. Sorry, it's early in the morning. That's okay. Okay, back to the game. Bishop f4 was played, not queen. Oh yeah, knight d5. Bishop f4. Okay, yeah, he traded. He did not play queen e4. He took on d5. And I was like, well, you know, I can just trade on d5. I wasn't so afraid of this. So his idea was a4. When I saw this at first, I was like, oh, that's a nice idea. But then I did see that I'm not going to lose a pawn or anything, just knight d7. Now, if I don't play knight d7, I think he does win a pawn. Because, or does he? Yeah, he does, because he can trade. And then take like this. But I just played knight d7 because it breaks the pin. Now my queen won't be distracted, and I can continue guarding b5. So, okay, he played h3, and I went bishop f6 here. I'm kind of dreaming of just pressuring this, but I will have to maneuver my knight a bit. It's hard for me to know what's best sometimes in these IQPs. Like maybe my knight belongs on c6 actually. So in this position, I actually did debate over these two moves for a bit, because it's like this move helps me occupy d5 with the knight, which is a good idea. But this move pressures the pawn. So they're two very different plans actually. Jolson said he would play this. He said pressure the pawn. Yeah, he likes to play more active. That makes sense. It's probably what I should have done as well, but both moves I think are just fine. Bishop f6, rook c1. Okay, I went rook fc8 because I just want to bring my last piece into the attack, Paul Morphy does that. Maybe I should do that. So bishop e5. Okay. Yeah, here, I don't know. I thought if anyone is better, it's probably black, because white has this isolated pawn. And then we both have isolated pawns over here, so it kind of cancels out. But so I think, if I ever do something like takes and he takes with a pawn, well, especially here, because that's not good. But I don't want this pawn to come to e5, because I think then I don't really have any advantage anymore. And I might even be slightly worse, because a pawn on e5 can be annoying. So I think, I should just not allow that pawn to come to e5, which means I kind of have to avoid trades for the most part. So I just played h6. He took and went for this idea, queen e5. Now, if I take, he could put the pawn on e5. Now, Michael Jolson, he liked this. He said, well, what's wrong with this? You put your knight on d5, your knight's amazing. But then he looked at it and he said, well, the white knight's coming to d4. That's an amazing square for that knight. And he thought maybe black has a little something here, and he was right on. The computer says minus 0.3. So, but during the game, I thought that would be just equal, and I wanted to keep this pawn isolated. I do think that's fine too. So, yeah, I traded. I really considered this move, queen b3. I thought this was interesting. Because, well, I'm attacking something. It's annoying. Jolson said I should have played it, because he said that's the kind of move you just play, and in a rapid game, you make your opponent think. And I was like, oh, okay. But I calculated it a bit, and I was like, well, queen e2, I don't know. Queen e2, he could possibly trade first and play queen e2, although I don't think that's so good. Notice queen e2 protects and eyes my pawn. And I was worried about this like rook c5 idea. So like if queen e2, I think rook c5 is next. Notice he can't play rook c5 right away because I would win a rook. But after queen e2, that also protects the rook. So I don't know. The engine gives queen b4, I guess preventing rook c5, but I don't know. When I saw queen e2 and I couldn't really see a nice continuation, I decided to just trade and play b4 to avoid this rook c5 stuff. And I also liked that maybe I could put my queen here. There's no rook c3. So I was still trying for something here, but he traded. Okay, that does allow my knight to come to d5, where it nicely protects my pawn. It's a very nice outpost. His knight has a pretty nice outpost too, though. Never play f6. Oh, I have to go in a minute here. Yeah, never play f6, but I think it's totally fine here. A reason not to play it is you're letting the knight in, but I thought after this, the knight has to simply retreat, and it's on the edge of the board now. I think I'm gaining some ground here. Maybe I could go rook a2. Oops. So I actually think f6 is a good move. You attack the pawn. The other idea is king f7. Oh boy, I do have to go. Hang on a second. I'll just wrap this up for you guys. Okay, so rook c6 came in. He's attacking my e-pawn. King up. Knight c5. Scary. But I actually did see that I have rook b6. I played this in time pressure, which is good. And he took. And there is an interesting try here. Like, white could actually take that. And if I take the rook, he can regain it with this move. What's funny is that in this resulting position, the knight is short on squares, and I guess black's better here, which is just funny. But in the game just trades, and I'll just show you the rest of the moves. I took with my f-pawn because I don't really want to allow him to get an outside pass pawn. And I was thinking of getting my king over here, but to protect this, to free up my knight. But then I realized that was probably the wrong idea because the white king could infiltrate over here on the other side. So I restricted him, kept it closed. Yeah, and I don't think there's any progress we can really make here. So I offered a draw. We're both, I believe, under a minute. And Jim Nix, being the gentleman that he is, he accepted my offer of a draw. So, you know, it's one of those games where sometimes when you have black, you just get equalish positions. I did get a slight advantage, like especially I was thinking around here where I have the slightly better pawn structure. I can play for a win, and I tried to, but it just didn't amount to anything. But luckily I didn't blunder in time pressure, so I'm happy with the draw. Jim Nix is an excellent player. A draw against him is really a good result for me, so that was the game. So I'll be back with more chess tournament games from my journey. I am all fired up. I have lots of tournaments lined up, and I'm going to play Parma tonight. So have a great day. See you next time.